Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So today we're going to cover the 10th tendency in Charlie Munger's Psychology of Human Misjudgment. This is a meaty one. There's a lot to this section on influence from mere association tendency. Now, I think when I get through all of these 25 tendencies or psychological biases, I'm going to rank them in a one-page document by how much was said about them in Poor Charlie's Almanack. I think that's probably a good rule of thumb for how much Charlie thought about each of these, how much he actually wrote about them. So coming soon, we're on number 10 of 25. So let's dive in. I'm going to pull out some paragraphs here from Poor Charlie's Almanack on influence from mere association tendency. Advertisers know about the power of mere association. You won't see Coke advertised alongside some account of the death of a child. Instead, Coke ads picture life as happier than reality. This is actually the first thing I thought of when I saw this tendency was Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola puts so much money and energy into having their product be associated with positive experiences, happiness, love, beauty. We're actually going to talk more about Coca-Cola when we jump over to this Farnham Street blog post on this tendency. Some of the most important miscalculations come from what is accidentally associated with one's past success, or one's liking and loving, or one's disliking and hating, which includes a natural hatred for bad news. So here we're bringing in some of the other tendencies. Gives an example. A man foolishly gambles in a casino and yet wins. This unlikely correlation causes him to try the casino again, or again and again, to his horrid detriment. Or a man gets lucky in an odds-against venture headed by an untalented friend. So influenced, he tries again what worked before, with terrible results. The proper antidotes to being made such a patsy by past success are: 1. To carefully examine each past success, looking for accidental, non-causative factors associated with such success that will tend to mislead as one appraises odds implicit in a proposed new undertaking. Number 2, to look for dangerous aspects of the new undertaking that were not present when past successes occurred. Another common bad effect from the mere association of a person and a hated outcome is displayed in Persian messenger syndrome. Okay, this is why we shoot the messenger. Ancient Persians actually killed some messengers whose sole fault was that they brought home truthful bad news, say, of a battle lost. It was actually safer for the messenger to run away and hide, instead of doing his job as a wiser boss would have wanted it done. Okay, just to wrap in the book portion of this, CBS in its late heyday was famous for occurrence of Persian messenger syndrome because Chairman Paley was hostile to people who brought him bad news. The result was that Paley lived in a cocoon of unreality, from which he made one bad deal after another, even exchanging a large share of CBS for a company that had to be liquidated shortly thereafter. The proper antidote to creating Persian messenger syndrome and its bad effects, like those at CBS, is to develop, through exercise of will, a habit of welcoming bad news. At Berkshire, there is a common injunction: always tell us the bad news promptly It is only the good news that can wait. It also helps to be so wise and informed that people fear not telling you bad news because you are so likely to get it elsewhere. Influence from mere association tendency often has a shocking effect that helps swamp the normal tendency to return favor for favor. Okay? So this tendency can actually trump the effect of reciprocity tendency. Sometimes when one receives a favor, his condition is unpleasant due to poverty, sickness, subjugation, or something else. In addition, the favor may trigger an envy-driven dislike for the person who was in so favorable a state that he could easily be a favor giver. Under such circumstances, the favor receiver, prompted partly by mere association of the favor giver with past pain, will not only dislike the man who helped him, but also try to injure him. Yes, that is a shocking effect indeed. A final serious clump of bad thinking caused by mere association lies in the common use of classification stereotypes. Because Pete knows that Joe is 90 years old and that most 90-year-olds don't think very well, Pete appraises old Joe as a thinking klutz, even if old Joe still thinks very well. The antidote there, what the person must learn, is that the average dimension in some group will not reliably guide him to the dimension of some specific item. Otherwise, Pete will make many errors, like that of the fellow who drowned in a river that averaged out only 18 inches deep. So there's a danger from assuming the average will apply to the specific case. So let's get in a little bit to this Farnham Street blog post. One of our goals should be to understand how the world works. A necessary condition for this is understanding our problems. That's why we're doing this video series. However, sometimes people are afraid to tell us problems. This is also known as the Pavlovian messenger syndrome, right? Or the Persian messenger syndrome. The original messenger wasn't shot, he was beheaded. In Plutarch's Lives, we find the first messenger that gave notice of Lucullus coming was so far from pleasing Tigranes that he had his head cut off for his pains, and no man dared to bring further information. Without any intelligence at all, Tigranes sat while war was already blazing around him, giving ear only to those who flattered him. Now, it's quite obvious here why that would not be a desirable situation to be in. The number of times that happens in an organization is countless. A related sentiment exists in Antigone by Sophocles, as no one loves the messenger who brings bad news. In A Lesson on Worldly Wisdom, Charlie Munger said, "If people tell you what you really don't want to hear, what's unpleasant, there's an almost automatic reaction of antipathy. You have to train yourself out of it. It isn't foredestined that you have to be this way, but you will tend to be this way if you don't think about it." Okay? Takes work to shift this. Let's see. If you're the receiver of bad news, it's best to follow the advice of Warren Buffett, who comments on being informed of bad news. We only give a couple of instructions to people when they go to work for us. One is to think like an owner, and the second is to tell us bad news immediately, because good news takes care of itself. We can take bad news, but we don't like it late. Okay? Buffett wants to be able to deal with the problems, right? When they're fresh, not when they've caused even more problems down the road. Last piece I want to cover here is Charlie Munger explaining the case of building Coca-Cola, whose marketing and product strategy is built on strong foundations of conditioning. Okay, very heavily on this tendency. So how did he do that? Munger walks us through the creation of the brand by using conditioned reflexes. The neural system of Pavlov's dog causes it to salivate at the bell it can't eat. And the brain of man yearns for the type of beverage held by the pretty woman he can't have. And so, glots, we must use every sort of decent, honorable Pavlovian conditioning we can think of. For as long as we are in business, our beverage and its promotion must be associated in consumer minds with all other things consumers like or admire. By repeatedly pairing a product or brand with a favorable impression, we can turn it into a conditioned stimulus that makes us buy. This goes even beyond advertising. Conditioned reflexes are also encompassed in Coca-Cola's name. Munger continues, considering Pavlovian effects, we will have wisely chosen the exotic and expensive-sounding name Coca-Cola, instead of a pedestrian name like Glotz's sugared, caffeinated water. It's not hard to imagine that wouldn't have done quite as well as Coca-Cola. And even texture and taste. And we will carbonate our water, making our product seem like champagne or some other expensive beverage, while also making its flavor better and imitation harder to arrange for competing products. Right? This is the secret formula, the recipe for Coca-Cola. Combining these and other clever non-Pavlovian techniques led to what Charlie Munger calls the Lollapalooza effect. That's a tendency we're going to cover at the end. That's number 25. Causing so many consumers to buy and making Coca-Cola an excellent business for over a century. So that's a little bit about Coca-Cola. This isn't the only section in Poor Charlie's Almanack where he talks about Coca-Cola. I think there's a whole chapter on it, how he's weaving these different psychological tendencies together to create this Lollapalooza effect. So anyway, guys, I will link to this blog post if you want to read the whole thing on bias from association and why we shoot the messenger. But that's it for this one. We've got 10 down, 15 to go. So thanks all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.